Hello students, in this video we'll talk about the another p block group, that is group 16. You can say the oxygen family. Group 16 basically is the oxygen family because oxygen is the representative element of this family. They're also called as chalcogens. So if we talk about the elements which are present in group 16, it's oxygen atomic number 8, sulfur atomic number 16, selenium atomic number 34, tellurium atomic number 52, and polonium atomic number 84. So if we look at the electronic configuration, noble gas electronic configuration, that is helium 2s2 2p4, neon 3s2 3p4, argon 3d10 4s2 4p4, krypton 4d10 5s2 5p4, xenon 4f14 5d10 6s2 6p4. So pay attention towards the electronic configuration, and if you observe closely, the d orbitals start from selenium, right? Then the f and d orbitals, they start from polonium. So d orbitals are the intervening d electrons are the intervening electrons in selenium, in tellurium, and in polonium. Both 4f as well as 5d electrons are intervening. And if we talk about this as the valence shell, oxygen has no d electrons, right? Selenium, tellurium, and polonium, they have 3d, 4d, 4f, and 5d intervening electrons respectively. So I'll again come to this electronic configuration, how this will decide about the oxidation state. So we'll talk about that in later. So if we talk about in general, every element of this group 16 has general outer electronic configuration as ns2np4. So that would mean 6 electrons in the outermost shell. So this is its general electronic configuration. Now if we talk about atomic and ionic radii, what is the general trend? As you move down the group, right, as we move from oxygen to polonium, the number of electrons are increasing. So to accommodate a large number of electrons, we require large number of shells, right? So what happens as the number of shells increase, or you can say as the number of electrons increase, as the number of shells increases, obviously the atomic radii has to increase. So what is the atomic and ionic radii trend? So as we move down the group from oxygen to polonium, the atomic and ionic radii increases down the group because of the increase in the number of shells. Now if we talk about next characteristic, that is the ionization enthalpy. So in general, as we move down the group, we are only talking about from oxygen to polonium. So as we move down the group, the number of shells are increasing, the valence electrons are moving away from the nucleus. So what does that mean? That means the ionization enthalpy will tend to decrease. So that means as we move, that means it will be easiest to remove the valence electrons from polonium, and it will be the most difficult to remove the electron from oxygen, because this has the least effective nuclear charge, this has the most effective nuclear charge. So if I elaborate, right, now if we talk about its previous group, so if we compare about from group 15 to group 16, so let's take only the representative element. Group 15 is nitrogen and group 16 is the oxygen. So nitrogen has electronic configuration 2s2 2p3, whereas oxygen has 2s2 2p4. So if I talk about the valence shell, we will only talk about 2p. Here 2p. So it has 3 electrons in the 2p subshell, whereas it has 4 electrons in the 2p subshell. So if we closely observe, what do you think? Who would have high ionization enthalpy? Nitrogen would have high ionization enthalpy. What are the reasons? The reasons are the 2p subshell is exactly half filled. So any subshell which is exactly half filled, any degenerate orbitals which are exactly half filled, they are more stable. So that means the 2p electronic configuration in in nitrogen and in general in group 15 is more stable. Hence the L group, hence it will be difficult to remove the electron from nitrogen, whereas it will be easier to remove the electron from group 16 elements as compared to group 15. So we come to the conclusion that group 16 elements have lower ionization enthalpy than group 15. This is against the trend. What do we see in general? As we move along a period, the ionization enthalpy increases. So that means according to the trend, group 16 ionization enthalpy should be higher than group 15, but it is exception. So you have to pay attention to this point, that why group 16 elements have lower ionization, because it is exception, that is against the trend. So anything which is against the trend, that is quite important. So what is the ionization enthalpy trend? That the group 16 elements have lower ionization enthalpy than group 15. This is because of the stable 2p electron PNP electronic configuration in group 15. Since these are non-metals, so we have to also consider about the next characteristic, that is the electron gain enthalpy. Electron gain enthalpy means what amount of energy is involved when the valence shell gains the electron. Ionization enthalpy was when it loses electron. I mean, how much energy is required to remove the electron. Electron gain enthalpy, it is how much energy is involved in when an electron is gained in the valence shell, right? So if we talk about this, so that's also an exception that requires previous knowledge. So let's revise first of all. So as we move down the group, what is in general trend? As we move down the group, electron gain enthalpy becomes less negative. Less negative means when a particular electron is added into the valence shell, lesser amount of energy is required. Means the electron is not welcomed into the valence shell. It is difficult for that element to gain the electron. That would mean if I talk about oxygen and selenium, see these are non-metals, so these are metals, I'm sorry, these are metals. So let's talk about this only, oxygen and selenium. If I talk about oxygen, oxygen should welcome the electron because its electron gain enthalpy is highly negative as compared to selenium. Oxygen has greater effective nuclear charge, so the incoming electron will experience greater force of attraction as compared to the selenium case. So in general, I'm talking about in general, if we move down the group, the electrons are not gained easily, but there is an exception. What exception is this? That oxygen has less negative electron gain enthalpy than sulfur. Why it is so? That means, in another words, it is said that sulfur gains the electrons very easily, whereas oxygen gains the electron with difficulty. So this is an exception. So the representative elements, if we talk about only p block, the representative elements usually have the most negative electron gain enthalpy, as this is as per the trend. But oxygen's electron gain enthalpy is less negative than that of the sulfur. This is why this is the trend, why this is, and from sulfur onwards, it's right, the value becomes less negative up to polonium. So that's pretty understood, because that is according to the trend. Now if we talk about only oxygen and sulfur, why is this trend? So listen, oxygen has electronic configuration 2s2 2p4. So it is confined to only 2 second shell, whereas sulfur has 3s2 3p4. The atomic size of oxygen is very less, is much smaller than that of sulfur. So the incoming electron will experience force of repulsions from these electrons which are already present in oxygen, right? So what does this mean? That the size of oxygen atom is very small. The electrons are already, you can say in other words, the electrons are already being congested in that oxygen atom. So if a new member comes into their family, that will also experience force of repulsion. This is the case, the electron has to be gained with difficulty. Some amount of energy has to be provided to oxygen so that it can gain that electron. Hence oxygen has less negative electron gain enthalpy than sulfur. So I hope you have understood. So they are both exceptions. Ionization enthalpy also, there lies an exception with group 15, and electron gain enthalpy also, there is a exception between oxygen and sulfur, and that forms an important part of the questions, right? If we talk about the next, that is the electronegativity. So what this electronegativity is? The tendency to attract the shared pair of electrons towards itself, and it is as per the trend. It decreases with increase in atomic number because the metallic character increases, right? Why because the effective nuclear charge decreases. What all reasons we have done in +1, they will be valid here. Why electronegativity decreases? So it decreases with an increase in atomic number. The metallic character increases from oxygen to polonium. So I think the general introduction for the group 16 is clear to you, right? Now let's proceed further towards the physical properties. What else? It's just only the 2-3 points are just worth reading. Polonium is a metal, yes, because down the group the metallic character increases. It is radioactive and is short-lived, so we will not talk much about its chemistry. Next, all the elements exhibit allotropy. Allotropy means it is the property in which an element exists in more than one form. Like if you see the example, allotropy, if I to remind you that suppose carbon has so many allotropic forms, like coal, like diamond, like graphite is similar. All the elements, right from oxygen to tellurium, they exist in allotropic forms. So now if we talk about their melting point and boiling point, it increases with increase in atomic number down the group. So as we move down the group, so this is a very important thing. Why the melting and boiling point increases down the group with increase in atomic number? Because when the atomic number increases, so pay attention why melting and boiling point increases. So as the atomic number increases, the atomic size will also increase. So if the atomic size increases, the van der Waals forces will increase. So and if the van der Waals forces increases, melting point and boiling point will tend to increase. So this is the case. Now next point I've done with the red highlighter. Now why it is? So if we talk about their element, this was in general, this melting and boiling point increases. So if I talk about in general, oxygen, sulfur, selenium and tellurium. So if I talk about these 4 elements, what do you observe? That oxygen and these all elements, there is a large difference in the melting and boiling points of oxygen and sulfur. Why is it so? So the point to note is there is large difference between the melting and boiling points of oxygen and sulfur. Why is it so? See, oxygen, why is it so? Oxygen exists as O2 in the form of gaseous, whereas sulfur exists in the polyatomic form as 8. So if it exists as O2 gaseous, its melting and boiling point will be lesser, obviously, and if it this exists in polyatomic form, it tend to exist in the solid form. So this is the case. So this is the main point to note. Why there is large difference? Because oxygen exists as diatomic form and sulfur exists as polyatomic or octatomic form in the form of S8. So this is the brief introduction about these physical properties, where we talked about electronic configuration, atomic radii, ionization enthalpy, electron gain enthalpy, electronegativity. And among the physical properties, we had the most important points that we have discussed is their melting and the boiling point, and why there is large difference between oxygen and sulfur. Now let's talk about another property. Just now we discussed that oxygen exists as O2 and sulfur exists as SA. Now we have to make a point why oxygen exists as O2 and why the other forms like sulfur, selenium and tellurium, they exist as octatomic form. Now this is a very simple thing and concept to understand. See, the atomic size of oxygen is very small, right? Its p orbitals are very small, hence they can very well overlap with each other. They can very well undergo sideways overlap. See, oxygen and oxygen, this sigma bond is formed. The leftover p orbitals, they can easily overlap because their size is small, and they can form oxygen double bond oxygen, right? So a p pi bond will be formed. So what is this? Due to small size and high electronegativity, oxygen atom forms p pi double bond with other oxygen atoms to form oxygen double bond oxygen molecule. So due to the small size, p orbitals are very small, so they can very well overlap with each other. They can undergo sideways overlap. So what are the intermolecular forces of attraction between oxygen molecules are weak van der Waals forces and hence exist as O2 molecule. One thing to know. That's the reason why its melting and boiling point is low. What about the rest of the elements? The rest of the elements, the p orbital size increases, so they cannot undergo efficient sideways overlapping to form pi bond. The rest of the elements of this group do not form p pi multiple bonds due to their larger size and hence do not exist as diatomic molecule. Instead, they form single bonds and have complex structures and exist as octatomic molecules having puckered 8-membered crown-shaped rings. So sulfur or selenium or tellurium, this form this kind of crown-shaped rings, that's the puckered 8-membered ring. So hence understood, right? So what I'll again repeat, the size of oxygen atom is very small. Hence its 2p orbitals can show efficient sideways overlapping to form p pi bond. But with the increase in the size of the sulfur, selenium and tellurium, their p orbitals are the size of the p orbitals are increasing. Hence they do not form efficient p pi multiple bond, and hence they do not undergo. They simply form the single bond, right? Hence oxygen's melting and boiling point was lesser and sulfur's melting and boiling point was greater, right? I hope it is understood. So next we proceeded towards the chemical properties. Now if we talk about the chemical properties, the first thing we have to do is the oxidation state, that is in direct association with the electronic configuration, right? So if we talk about, if I again see the electronic configuration to see, their general electronic configuration is Ns2Np4, 6 electrons in the outermost shell, so that means they are short of only 2 electrons to attain noble gas configuration. So that means one of the common oxidation states would have been -2, right? So the common oxidation state of group 16 elements is -2, right? Now if we talk about the positive oxidation state, so what will be their positive oxidation state? That will be +2, +4 and +6. So what are their common oxidation state? -2, +2, +4 and +6, right? So now if we talk about only minus oxidation state, down the group the metallic character increases. So if a metal is present, it will never show negative oxidation state. Hence the stability of -2 oxidation state decreases down the group. So down the group the metallic character increases, so why would it show a negative oxidation state, right? Next is oxygen shows only -2 oxidation state and not these positive oxidation state, except there is one exception in OF2. When oxygen is present with fluorine, fluorine is even more electronegative than oxygen. So it can force oxygen for a positive oxidation state. So in OF2 where its oxidation state is +2. So again repeat, the electronic configuration of group 16 elements is what? NS2, NP4. So if we talk about its negative oxidation state, -2 will be the negative oxidation state. And if we talk about the positive oxidation state, they are +2, +4 and +6. If we talk about of only -2 of negative oxidation state, so it will, the stability will decrease down the group because the metallic character increases, and the oxygen among these elements show only negative oxidation state because it is highly electronegative, except when it is present in the with the fluorine in OF2 where its oxidation state is +2. Now come on to the next elements. Sulfur, selenium and tellurium show +4 oxidation state also with oxygen, and with the fluorine they can also show +6 oxidation state. Now again, so if we talk about the oxidation state of +4 and +6, so that means they show +4 and +4 and +6 oxidation state. So there is a general thing that as we move down the group, the lower oxidation state becomes more stable. So that means the stability of +4 oxidation state decreases down the group, and that of +4 increases due to inert pair effect. So I again come to the electronic configuration to recall what is inert pair effect. Now we will only talk about, suppose, sulfur and tellurium, right? Sulfur has electronic configuration 3s2 3p4. It will lose this 4 electrons and 2 electrons and hence exhibit +6 oxidation state. So its +6 oxidation state is more stable. So I can say that +6 oxidation state of sulfur is more stable. Now if I talk about tellurium, what happens is, due to poor shielding effect of these 4d electrons, these s electrons are strongly attracted towards the nucleus, due to which they will not participate in bonding. Only p electrons will be left. Hence its stable oxidation state is +4, and this effect is called as inert pair effect, and we have done very thoroughly in +1 what is inert pair effect. So I again repeat, 3s both the electrons, 3p all the 4 electrons are removed from sulfur to attain the noble gas configuration. Hence its +6 oxidation state is stable. Contrary to this, tellurium, what tellurium does, its 4d electrons have poor screening effect. So these s electrons, what happens is, they are strongly attracted towards the nucleus. So hence we cannot remove these electrons. So it's only left with 5p 4 electrons. Hence its oxidation state stable is +4. So this is the case, and this is the inert pair effect. Hence we can say that the stability of +4 oxidation state decreases down the group, and that of the +4 increases due to the inert pair effect, right? So this will form a explanation for a very few important questions. So at relevant time we'll discuss about them. Now if we talk about bonding in +4 and +6 oxidation state is primarily covalent. Now if we talk about why oxygen always showed different behavior from rest of its members. Why? Because due to its small size, high electronegativity, high ionization enthalpy and absence of d orbitals, that all 4 or 5 points that they are valid for every representative element, right from fluorine, oxygen, nitrogen, boron. So all the p block elements, they show anomalous behavior. Why? Because they have very small size, they have high electronegativity, they have high ionization enthalpy and the absence of d orbitals. Now let's discuss a very important question. Why H2O is a liquid? Water is a liquid and H2S is a gas. So that's a very important and common thing, that H2O in water, there is presence of strong intermolecular hydrogen bonding. So when there is strong intermolecular hydrogen bonding, what happens? The van der Waal forces increase. So if the van der Waal forces increase, obviously they will exist as liquid, whereas there is no hydrogen bonding in H2S, hence it is a gas, right? So this was all about, and this was few chemical properties of group 16 elements. Now let's talk about the another question. Why oxygen cannot increase its covalency beyond 2? Why oxygen shows always valency 2, whereas the other elements can show? Because absence of d orbitals. Hence, since we see oxygen has electronic configuration 2s2 2p4, there is no 2d orbital. 2d orbital never exists. So if it does not exist, it cannot extend its valency. Due to absence of d orbitals, the covalency of oxygen cannot exceed 2, right? Next property is oxygen is the most reactive of all the elements of group 16. Why oxygen is the most reactive? Because it is highly electronegative. The reactivity decreases down the group. So as we move down the group, the reactivity decreases. Now about the sixth point. Pay attention to the sixth point. How they react with hydrogen. So how the group 16 elements react with hydrogen. Every group 16 element, when it reacts with hydrogen, it forms hydrides. For example, with oxygen H2O, sulfur H2S, selenium H2Se, tellurium H2Te, right? So now let's talk about in detail about these hydrides, how these hydrides they show different properties. So as we move from H2O to H2Te, the boiling point first decreases from H2O to H2S and then increases from H2S to H2Te. If I only talk about, let's first make a group H2O, H2S, H2Se, H2Te. So pay attention only towards this. So as we move from H2S to H2Te, size increases. What happens is size increases. If the size increases, van der Waal forces will increase. If the van der Waal forces increase, the boiling point will also increase. This is we know. This thing we know. So as we move from H2S to H2Te, size increases, van der Waal forces increases, the boiling point has to increase. Now if we talk about only H2O, why water shows different property and the boiling point of water is more than that of then boiling point of H2S. Why is it so? Yes, you guessed this right. Why? Because H2O, what happens in H2O? H2O undergoes hydrogen bonding. So if H2O undergoes hydrogen bonding, obviously the van der Waal forces will increase. So if the van der Waal forces increase, the boiling point will increase. So this is an exception. I hope you have understood, right? Now if we talk about the second property, the acidic character. The acidic character increases from H2O to H2Te. Why is it so? For that you need to understand means acidic character means ability to lose H positive ions. Right? So if that means H2Te loses H positive ions very easily as compared to water. Why is it so? So as we move from H2O to H2S to H2Se to H2Te down the group, bond strength, H and E is either oxygen, sulfur, Se or Te. Bond strength decreases, means bond between H and E becomes weak. So if this becomes weak, so H positive can be easily lost, hence H2Te is most acidic and water is least acidic. Very simple, right? In continuation with this, same is the case with the third point that says, similarly all the hydrides except water possess reducing property. Reducing property matlab lose H and give its H to the other so that it gets reduced, right? And the character increases from H to S. What's the reason? Because the bond strength down the group decreases. Bond strength of what? H and E decreases down the group. This is the reason. Same is the reason for thermal stability. Same reason, thermal stability decreases down the group. So I would again rewrite it that the bond strength decreases. So that means in all the 3 points you have to learn one thing, that down the group the bond strength of H and E decreases. That's the bond that becomes weaker, right? Hence acidic character increases, reducing character increases, and thermal stability decreases. So I leave it on you this question, why H2S is less acidic than H2Te. So I would leave it on you because we've already discussed it above. Now let's talk about the sixth point. The bond angle decreases from H2O to H2Te due to stronger lone pair repulsions than bond pair repulsions. So this you might have not understood. Let's talk about this. So I would use this space to write. So this is water. This is H2S. Right? So as we move down the group, what happens? Bond angle decreases. So why the bond angle decreases? Bond angle decreases. See, oxygen is more electronegative. Oxygen is the most electronegative. So what does it do is, it keeps its bond pair very close to itself. So these bond pairs, they are closer to oxygen, and obviously it has lone pair, right? So to reduce these bond pair repulsions and these lone pair repulsions, the angle opens up, due to which its angle is more. As if we talk about tellurium, it is less electronegative, so the bond pairs are not there in the center, they are not close to tellurium. So what happens is, just only to decrease lone pair repulsions, it comes closer. Here they have to open up because the bond pair are very close to oxygen, hence the bond angle is more. But in case of tellurium, the bond pair are far from tellurium, hence they have only to reduce lone pair repulsions, hence they come closer and the bond angle is lesser. So what is it? Due to stronger lone pair repulsions than bond pair repulsions. So I hope you have understood. Now let's talk about another properties, that is reactivity towards oxygen. So if that is the formation of oxides. So the group 16 elements, form two types of oxides. They are EO2 dioxides and trioxides. Among the dioxides we have O3 and SO2, which are gases. SiO2 is solid. Very important thing here also electronic configuration inert pair effect will be valid. Reducing character of dioxide decreases from SO2 to TeO2. SO2 is reducing, whereas TeO2 is an oxidizing agent. Why? See, in SO2, sulfur is in +4 oxidation state. It quickly changes to +6 oxidation state because its +6 is more stable. So if it itself gets oxidized, it will act as reducing agent. You getting my point? So this is because why its higher oxidation state is stable and its lower oxidation state is stable, because of inert pair effect. So in SO2, sulfur is in +4 oxidation state, but its +6 is more stable. So it quickly changes to +6 oxidation state. So it itself get oxidized, thus acting as a reducing agent. Now if we talk about trioxides, SO3, SeO3, TeO3 are the forms of trioxide. Both these types of oxides are acidic in nature. Now next is the reactivity towards halogens, right? They form 3 types of halides: hexa, tetra and dihalides, all the group 16 elements. The stability of the halides decreases, that means fluorides are the most stable and iodides are the least stable. Why? Because fluorine is more electronegative. Now if we talk about hexahalides, hexafluorides are the only stable halides. They are gaseous in nature. The relative stability decreases. So sulfur halides, sulfur hexafluorides are the most stable, whereas tellurium hexafluorides are the least stable. Again inert pair effect. Here sulfur is in +6 oxidation state. Tellurium is also the +6 oxidation state. So what? +6 oxidation state of tellurium is not stable. Why? Due to inert pair effect. So why would it stay in +6 oxidation state? So it due to inert pair effect. So if they are more stable, so what will be the order of hydrolysis, means how will they react? So TeF6 will be the most reactive towards hydrolysis, and SF6 will not react, will not undergo hydrolysis at all. So what happens is, so TeF6 undergoes hydrolysis easily, whereas SF6 does not undergo hydrolysis. It does not undergo hydrolysis, right? TeF6, it has to undergo hydrolysis. Now if we talk about tetrafluorides, SF4 is a gas, SeF4 is a liquid and TeF4 is a solid. They act as Lewis bases because of the presence of lone pair of electrons. SF6 does not undergo hydrolysis, but SF4 readily undergo hydrolysis, and this is its hydrolysis reaction. So if SF4 reacts with water, it forms HF and SO2. SF6 does not undergo any hydrolysis. So why? For that we have to look into its structure. So this is the hexafluoride structure. It's all the orbitals are filled, and also fluorines, all the 6 fluorine elements, they sterically surround this sulfur atom, so water cannot attack. Sulfur is surrounded by 6 fluorine atoms which cause steric hindrance. So that means there is already, in other words, there is already so much of chaos around sulfur, so water cannot attack. And also all the orbitals are used up. There is no empty orbital left, right? Now next, if we talk about dihalides, all the elements except oxygen form dichlorides and difluorides by sp3 hybridization. The monohalides are dimeric in nature. Example: S2F2, S2Cl2, S2Br2, Se2Cl2, Se2Br2. The dimeric halides undergo disproportionation. So this was the general. So disproportionation means dimeric. This was in monohalides in +1 oxidation state, they change into 0 and +4 oxidation state. So this was the general introduction, their chemical properties, their physical properties of group 16 elements. Now we talk about in detail the compounds of group 16. Among the compounds of group 16, we talk about first dioxygen O2. Its preparation can be done, if we talk about its lab preparation, that can be done by heating chlorates, nitrates and permanganes which have high quantity of oxygen. Suppose KClO3, it on heating it decomposes to give KCl plus O2. The unstable oxides like Ag2O, HgO, Pb3O4, on heating they undergo quick decomposition to give oxygen. Also hydrogen peroxide, when it comes in contact with active metals or MnO2, it decomposes to give O2. Now if we talk about large scale preparation, oxygen can be prepared on large scale by electrolysis of water, that is water on passing electricity, it gives hydrogen and oxygen. Industrial preparation, from the air it is obtained from the air by first removing carbon dioxide and water vapor, and then the remaining gases are liquefied and fractionally distilled to give N2 and O2. What are their properties? It's colorless, odorless, soluble in water, just sufficient for the vital support of marine and aquatic life. Oxygen has 3 stable isotopes, O16, O17 and O18. O2 is paramagnetic in spite of having even number of electrons. This was in general. So, and now we talk about its reaction. Oxygen reacts with almost every metal except noble metals, gold, platinum and non-metals. So when it reacts with, if anything reacts with oxygen, the reaction is highly exothermic. So these are different metals and non-metals. You can give a look. Calcium oxide is formed, aluminium oxide, phosphorus oxide, carbon dioxide, zinc oxide, again carbon. So anything which reacts with oxygen is highly exothermic. Some of the compounds are catalytically oxidized also. For example, SO2 and O2 to give SO3, HCl plus O2 to give Cl2 and H2. The oxides are classified into basically different types. Simple oxides, MgO and Al2O3, where there is a stoichiometric relationship between the element and the oxygen. Mixed oxides, Pb3O4, Fe3O4. Fe3O4 has FeO and Fe2O3 combination. So why mixed oxide? Because it contains both the oxides in different proportion. It has FeO also and Fe2O3 also. Now if we talk about acidic oxide SO2, Cl2O7, carbon dioxide, NO2O5. Why acidic oxide? Because when it reacts with water it forms H2SO3. Only non-metal oxides are acidic, or the oxides of some metals in their higher oxidation state. So how do you identify? If it's a non-metal oxide, it is acidic. And if it is a metal oxide, it should have a higher oxidation state. If we talk about basic oxides, the ones which are which dissolve in water to form a base, metallic oxides are basic, but there are some which are amphoteric oxide. For example, aluminium oxide. It reacts with HCl also and NaH also to form their respective products. Then there are simple neutral oxides that you have to learn, carbon monoxide, NO. So this is on your part, you have to learn how aluminium oxide reacts with HCl, how it reacts with NaOH. So this was all about the oxygen. Next compound of, if we talk about next compound, that is ozone, O3. That's very reactive in the atmosphere. However, at a height of 20 km in the stratosphere, it is formed from atmospheric oxygen in the presence of sunlight. The ozone layer, why the ozone layer is important to us? Because it protects the Earth's surface from an excessive concentration of UV radiations. How it is prepared? When a silent electrical discharge, continuous electricity is passed through oxygen, it combines to give O3. This reaction is highly endothermic, means you have to keep giving the energy so that oxygen reacts to form the ozone. It is an endothermic process. It is necessary to use a silent electrical discharge in preparation to prevent its decomposition. So if you require more than 10% of ozone, a battery of ozonizers can be used and pure ozone can be obtained in a vessel surrounded by liquid oxygen. Means it is very difficult to prepare ozone because the process is highly endothermic. One thing to note, right? It is difficult. So continuous energy has to be provided. Properties, if we talk, if it's a gas, it has a pale blue color. If it's a liquid, then it's dark blue. If it's solid, then it is violet black. It has a characteristic smell. In small concentration, it is harmless, but if it's higher concentration, it is harmful. Now, very important question: why O3 is thermodynamically less stable than O2? See, we see both the reactions. If O2 has to prepare O3, the process is endothermic, but the reverse process is exothermic. This process is exothermic. So exothermic process will be preferred rather than endothermic. We cannot provide so much of energy. Since the decomposition, now listen very carefully, since the decomposition of ozone to O2 is accompanied by release of energy, hence O3 easily decomposes to O2. It's very simple. So when a process is accompanied by release of energy, yes, it has to go. So O3 will readily decompose to O2 because the process is exothermic. So this is why O3 is thermodynamically less stable. So whenever O3 decomposes, how does it do? O3 decomposes to give O2 plus a nascent oxygen. Due to the liberation of nascent oxygen, O3 acts as a powerful oxidizing agent. So if it acts as a powerful oxidizing agent, what does it do? It oxidizes lead sulfide to lead sulfate. Lead sulfide is black in color. So if ozone is passed, what happens? It changes to white PbSO4 and oxygen is released. Next important thing to note is how is O3 estimated quantitatively? Means how do you measure how much O3 is produced? What happens is O3 gas is passed through potassium iodide solution, I negative, that's the from potassium iodide solution, Ki. It liberates I2. The I2 liberated is titrated against a standard solution of sodium thiosulfate. Means you now make a chain. The amount of sodium thiosulfate used will tell us how much I2 is liberated. How much I2 will be liberated will give us how much I negative is used, potassium iodide is used, and how much potassium iodide is used will tell us how much O3 is present. So this makes a chain. So what happens? O3 is first treated with potassium iodide solution. I2 is released. I2 is then titrated against sodium thiosulfate solution. Now this, how ozone is being depleted. The nitrogen oxides emitted from exhaust systems of supersonic jet aeroplanes combine rapidly with ozone and may be slowly depleting the ozone layer. So O3, it reacts with NO, it forms NO2 and O2. Another threat, O3 is depleted, NO reacts with O3, it is depleted, oxygen is formed. Another threat to this ozone layer is probably posed by the use of freons, which are used in the aerosol sprays and refrigerators. Now we talk about O3. O3 exists in the resonance, hence both the oxygen bonds are equivalent because they exist in resonance. So very important structure of O3, you can very well note it. So what is this? This O3 has resonating structures due to which both the oxygen bond lengths are equal due to resonance. Now the use of O3. O3 is a germicide, disinfectant, and is used for sterilizing water, for bleaching oils, ivory, flour, starch, etc. It is an oxidizing agent in the manufacture of KMNO4. So we quickly discuss about the next element of group 16, that is sulfur. Sulfur exists in two allotropic forms. They are alpha sulfur or yellow rhombic and beta sulfur or monoclinic. Both of them have S8 molecules like this, which are packed to give different crystal structures. So this is the point of difference between rhombic sulfur, which is alpha sulfur, and monoclinic sulfur, which is beta sulfur. This allotropic form is yellow in color, whereas monoclinic is colorless. They have different melting points and specific gravity by which we can distinguish them. How rhombic sulfur can be prepared? It can be formed by evaporating the solution of roll sulfur in carbon disulfide, whereas monoclinic is formed from rhombic sulfur in a dish and cooling till the crust is formed. It is taken in a dish, heated. Here above the crust is formed, then two holes are created in the crust and the liquid is poured out of it. On the remaining crust, the colorless needle-shaped crystals of beta sulfur are formed. So below 369 Kelvin, alpha sulfur is more stable. Above 369 Kelvin, beta sulfur is more stable. And if we talk about at 369 Kelvin, both the forms are stable. So this temperature is called as the transition temperature, where both the allotropic forms are stable. So what is that transition temperature? That is 369 Kelvin. In cyclose, there is another form, S6, which is cyclic, that adopts a chair form. It's like this, with the bond length of 205.7 picometer. There is also one species which is S2 in this vapor form at very high temperature, very important. At elevated temperature of 1000 Kelvin, S2 exists in vapor form, S2, and it's paramagnetic just like O2. So I hope this is understood. Next, very quickly we'll discuss about sulfur dioxide. This is the preparation. How sulfur dioxide is prepared? When sulfur is burnt in air. In lab preparation from sulfurous. So if sulfurous acid, it liberates sulfur dioxide. Industrial, any sulfide ore when it is undergo roasting. So this is the process of roasting we done in metallurgy. Properties: this is colorless gas with pungent smell, highly soluble in water, liquefies at room temperature under a pressure of 2 atmosphere. Now let's discuss about its reaction. SO2, when it is passed through water, it forms sulfurous acid. NaOH, when it reacts with NaOH, it forms sodium sulfite. And if again SO2 is formed, saturation takes place, it forms sodium hydrogen sulfite. It reacts with chlorine and oxygen respectively. With chlorine, SO2Cl2 formed, sulfuryl chloride, SO2 and O2, it forms SO3. Very important, SO2 is reducing in nature. SO2 reduces Fe3 positive to Fe2 positive and itself gets oxidized to SO4 2 negative. Similarly, SO2 reduces MnO4 negative to Mn2 positive and itself gets oxidized to SO4 2 negative. So if I leave the structure of SO2 on you people, because we have done, so you have to answer me about the bond length. Bond length of S and oxygen in SO2. So take the help of +1 knowledge of Lewis structure and draw its resonating structure and discuss about the bond length of SO in SO2. Next, we are almost to completion of group 16. We talk about oxo acids of sulfur. There are few oxo acids. Very important to learn their names and their structure. You can draw these. Sulfurous acid, sulfuric acid, Carose acid, which is H2SO5, peroxo disulfuric acid, which is H2S2O8. There is a peroxide linkage, and there is oleum pyrosulfuric acid. Why? When two sulfuric acid combine with the loss of water, hence it is pyrosulfuric acid. Next, last important topic is sulfuric acid. Its manufacture. It is manufactured by contact process, which involves 3 steps. Burning of sulfur or sulfide ore. If you have sulfur and you burn it with in oxygen, it gives sulfur dioxide, or any sulfide ore, if it burns in oxygen, it gives its respective oxide and sulfur dioxide. This sulfur dioxide can be used in the second step, which is the rate determining step. It forms SO3. It is a rate determining step. The process is exothermic. Rate, it is a slow and rate determining step. You require 720 Kelvin and a pressure of 2 atmosphere to move the reaction in the forward direction. Right? So this is the rate determining step, very important, SO2 to SO, because it's slow step, it is in equilibrium, and the rate determining step. Next, once SO3 is formed, it is absorbed in H2SO4 to give oleum, H2S2O7. This oleum is then dissolved in suitable amount of water to give H2SO4, and H2SO4 obtained at this point is 98% pure. So let's quickly discuss about its properties. Sulfuric acid is colorless, dense, oily liquid. It dissolves in water with evolution of large amount of heat. Why its chemical properties are more important? Its chemical properties or reactions of sulfuric acid are as a result of the following characteristics. Its low volatility, strong acidic character, strong affinity for water, and ability to act as oxidizing agent. So if we talk about strong acidic character, H2SO4, it dissociates to give HSO4 negative plus H positive. It has Ka1, means dissociation constant. HSO4 negative loses another H positive to form to lose H positive. Here Ka1 is much greater than Ka2. So answer this suitable with suitable valid point. Why Ka1? It's there in general. They have high values. Ka1 has large value than Ka2, which suggests that it is a very strong acid. Now you have to answer why Ka1 is much greater than Ka2. I give you a hint. Here the H positive is to be removed from neutral, whereas in this H positive has to be removed from a negatively charged species. Now if we talk about low volatility, H2SO4 has low volatility, means it is very dense. So it can be used to manufacture more volatile acids. For example, if H2SO4 is passed through MX salt, where MX can be MF, MCl, MNO3, it forms HX, means HF, HCl, HNO3, which are volatile acids. If it has strong affinity for water, means H2SO4 acts as a strong dehydrating agent. Means suppose we have sugar. If H2SO4 is passed through it, carring happens, means black color, it acts as a carring agent. It forms carbon plus water. So this is black color, carbon black is formed. It is a strong dehydrating agent. This is point to note. H2SO4 is a very strong oxidizing agent. It itself gets reduced to SO2 and oxidizes other. For example, copper, sulfur and carbon. They are oxidized to copper sulfate, sulfur dioxide and carbon dioxide. Very important thing to note. So this was all about the P block group 16. I hope you have understood. So in the next video, we'll talk about group 17. Thank you everyone.